Okay, I wanted to do another quick video on ThruLines. A day ago, a little over a day ago, made a short video on ThruLines. First impression was amazing, and I'm still very, very impressed with it. And I wanted to just kind of really go over and ask the question, how accurate is this, and what can I get from it? So now that we've seen that it's replaced DNA circles, I can now check all of the people in my tree and look and see how these DNA matches are potentially matching up. So let's just take a look at this in its entirety, and we're just going to go through the list and see what it says. So on the first one, it shows my father. Well, okay, that's in my tree. There's no DNA to him. And this is where it gets interesting. This one says private. Now, at first I didn't know what this is, but as we scroll down, this is going to actually prove to be a situation where it recommends that my father's wife, okay, because my mother and my father, they weren't married. My father's wife could potentially, right here, be my mother. But we already got my mother's DNA, so I don't know why it's there, but it has father, potential mother, even though my mother's DNA is in there. So that's obviously a big fat error. So let's go on up here. Then it starts in the next generation. It goes Clarence. All right. So there's Clarence, and it's got a couple of matches over here under Larkin's sister Doris. And normally there would be more people in here because I've got all these other matches through the same brown tree. You see this first one, that's the brown flag. But notice that there's no tree, no tree. And this one's actually on that other page, unlinked tree, no tree. She's actually through a different node, unlinked tree, and this person's actually there and because they have a tree. So there's the Tammy Escalera. They don't have DNA, and that person was on the other page with the tree. So you actually have to have a tree and DNA in order to get to the ThruLines, okay? So there has to be a tree and DNA to get there. So as we go up here, there was Clarence. Now this is his wife, Dolly. And again, we see the same three people, and again, there would be more people, but they're not there because they don't have trees. This one, I'm not going to click on it. This one actually goes with this. This is her father. It recommends that I have a potential grandfather to go with this potential mother who was married to my father. And I even have it on there, not my relative at all. That's why it's marked, they're both marked as potential, because I don't have them flagged. It's showing me that, hey, my tree shows that maybe this person that's in my tree, for my father could potentially be my mother, even though my mother has DNA on file and I've already flagged her as not related. Okay, so in this one's kind of interesting too. This shows as my maternal grandmother. Now, my mother was adopted, and her adoptive parents were Leroy David Wright and Alpha Harbaugh. And so this shows that my mother, who's alive, potentially is connected to this person. So that's kind of a fail because, again, I've got it very clearly. I even double and triple checked before I made the video that I had it set up right, in my family tree maker and online synced and stuff, and it shows adoptive. And so it's telling me that even though these people are adoptive, it still treats the adoptive families as general parents. And maybe that's so that you can find these lines. I don't know. So we look at the next one, William Alexander Brown. Now this is really where the power of ThruLines comes in. I had to manually do this months ago in order to figure out who my father was. And I've actually, in my endeavors, I've been matching all of the people in my DNA list to my tree. And I started, and I've gotten everybody that's over 50 centimorgans matched up in the tree. So what I did over the course of the last few months, ThruLines did for me, just bang, here's ThruLines, look, here it all is. Thank you very much. Well, I wish you were here months ago. You would have saved me literally hundreds of hours. But this is something that you'll notice on trees that are more likely to be accurate, is that you'll see there's several children involved, and under there, two matches. One match here, three here. So that's, there. Now, here's my node. And there are some anomalies, and we talked about this in the centimorgan video. See how low he is at second cousin once removed? Here's second cousin once removed, 159 with 10 segments, 15 and 1. And here is a second cousin once removed, 212 and 15, 188 and 13. But I did check this out, and this, even though it's an anomaly, we verified this in the centimorgan video, with the DNA painter. It's a potentially, it fits in the variation, and after, visiting with him, correspondence, getting his father's information, the obituary from his mother, and the census report from 1940 and 30, because she was alive there, and going up here and match with the census reports for all the brothers that I have here, the son of William, it all fit. And so that, even though it's an anomaly at 15, and in one case I talked about in the centimorgan video, I have a second cousin once removed that is 0. So, the centimorgans, great tool to use, not absolute. Nothing's absolute when you're dealing with family trees. In fact, paper trails are not absolute. I've got a birth certificate that says I'm Jones. I got another one that says I'm Basie, and my true biological father is Brown. So, all those that are saying, hey, if you can't prove this with paper, it's not true. Well, I got news for you. I can prove with paper I'm a Jones. I can prove with paper that, I'm a Basie. I've even got video of Dwight Basie, my father, on my birth certificate, bringing me home from the hospital when I was 2 days old, and the marriage with him before, and my mom saying that, yeah, that's your father. And no, I'm even named after Dwight Basie's 2 brothers, Larry and Dwayne. Okay, and I'm Larry Dwayne Jones. So paper trails, I get it, folks. We want to double and triple check before we propagate bad trees, but I'm going to tell you just straight up, and it may be a bitter pill for some, but if you have paper trails and that's all you've relied on and you've not verified it with DNA, you're probably propagating some mistakes yourself. So, that being what it is. So we're going to go back and look at the ThruLines, and we looked at William, and this is where it's kind of cool. We'll see this in a minute. The wife, Caroline, the same, 22133 as we had with her husband, which is to be expected. And so now we're going to go to the next husband and wife pair. So this is James McFarland, and we see 3 here, 2 here, 3 here, 1 here, okay? And this is really, okay, remember, 1, 3, 2, 3. Now we're going to look at Larkin's wife, which was Caroline. Or excuse me, Sarah Adeline Taylor. And now we've got 3, 2, 3, but the one over here is not there. So is this a mistake in ThruLines? Well, no, actually, this is a very, very accurate ThruLines, and very helpful. In fact, you can see here, here's some matches there and some more here. I've actually, again, like I said, if it's over 50, I've mashed them into my tree already. But on this line, this is the one that's not shown in the other one. Cora is actually a daughter of James, but by a previous marriage. Okay, so James was married before he married Sarah Taylor. And so these 3 were with Sarah, and Cora, was with James. And that's what I think is really important for us to understand when we're looking at ThruLines. ThruLines is a different way of looking at your family tree, because it's looking at a person and your biological kin, and another person and your biological kin. So in this case, Cora, Eleanor, Dolly, and Ura are all children of James. And when you go to the wife, you've got Eleanor, Dolly, and Ura are all kids of Sarah. And that's accurate. Both of those are 100% accurate, and that information alone tells me that there was a previous marriage, and in fact, that did prove to be the case. Okay, so now this is where it does kind of get a little frustrating. Again, there's no DNA here. Okay, again, this is that adoptive line for him and his wife, and it's saying a great grandfather, great grandmother. And it is, this is how I was raised. This was my grandmother's parents, my great-grandparents. I remember meeting them while they were still alive. They died in 72 and in 70. So, I do remember meeting him, and, bless his heart, my great-grandfather, Charles Harbaugh, when he got old, he had Alzheimer's, and he used to tell the same joke over and over. Railroad crossing, look out for cars. Can you spell that without any R's? And, of course, I would try to spell that sentence without any R's in it, and he'd laugh, said no, T-H-A-T, and he'd tell it again and again, and finally I go, Grandma, Grandpa keeps telling me the same joke over and over. It can make him stop. And she came in there, and of course, I was so young, at 9, almost 10 years old, that I just didn't understand the whole concept of Alzheimer's, understand his disease. But he told that joke over and over and over. He'd laugh, and then he'd tell it again, and he'd laugh. So I can say this: I kept, I kept him happy for at least a half a day, one day, as he told me the same joke over and over. Bless his heart. So again, while he is my great grandfather on a paper trail, he's not really a biological grandfather. And you notice that when we looked at these, there's no DNA people in there. So that's your big clue. So John W. Brown. Now this is where ThruLines is really in the iffy. Some of them are accurate, some of them are not accurate, and some of them are iffy. And so here's an iffy one. So we've got a Frances Brown, which I know to be a sister of William Brown. And here's somebody that says that their tree goes up to here. It goes up to Everett Doyle. And then, the Ancestry information matches the Burley that I have in my tree with this Everett Doyle and on down. So I believe that to be correct. But what I don't see, there were 13 kids here. And so I don't see all of those. And so that's, we're talking to the second great grandfather. And so I want to be cautious about that, saying that it's not right. Because remember, we showed that you have to have a tree and you have to have DNA. So these people may not have had their tree. They may not have been able to track it back to a second great grandfather. Or they may have put, Bill Brown or Bill A or WA or anything that it didn't make the connection on. So this is good. I need to investigate, this, look at, there's a census report probably 1904, so I can probably find this in a 1940 and make that connection. And if I can probably email them directly and get this information and add that to the tree. So this node's potentially right. It's noticeably missing more than what I do. And even though this says, 12 matches, 11 of them are under the William Alexander Brown that we already know this node's correct. Okay. So, but when you go back up, there's only 2 nodes, and I would think that I would see more. So maybe that person just has their tree documented, to the wrong tree. I don't know. I mean, they didn't because it stitched it together, but still something's not all right there. I go to the wife, Nancy, I see about the same thing. So let's look at, John Clark and them. So look at John Clark. There's only 1 node, and there's none that come over with DNA matches. It still just goes down to the Caroline 20 Clark, which was, basically the node that we'd verified before. So something's potentially odd about that John Clark node and his wife, Caroline 20, same thing, obviously. So, that's really kind of suspicious. And we're going to go and look a little further down. Let's find, maybe the next node up there. So come up here, look at the Clarks or something in the 4th great grandparent level. Here's one. Let's just look at this one, Marks. So again, we come down here and we don't see any nodes, but again, this is 4th great grandmother. That means that in order to match that, there had to be some people stitched together trees that match that. But there's 12 here, so we expand this. Now I'm seeing what I would kind of expect to see. I see multiple nodes, and I see 1 match down through this node. I see 2 matches down through that node. I see a singular one here. I'm here, but there's 8 more matches, and it would kind of blow that up if I did that. So this actually looks like it's potentially, correct. And so that's pretty good. 3rd great grandmother, the Mary Pickens, that actually, goes up above the David Dillon Taylor. Because at David Dillon Taylor, I don't see these extra nodes like I would expect to see. Okay, I do see them at the Sarah, but at David I don't, but at Mary I do. And so that makes me think that this could potentially be the right one. Now, I say potentially. I've got all the census documents and got some land deeds, wills, and other records that show that these are indeed correct. In fact, Catherine Marks, being Mary Pickens' parents, it's very well documented in all the records. It doesn't show it here on this, but on my personal records, I've got all the census reports, and she lived with them. I mean, So there was no question that basically from the moment they were married, the husband was Wilson Taylor. From the moment Wilson and Mary were married, the mother-in-law, Catherine Marks, lived with them from that day until the day she died. Why? Because she inherited land from, the ancestors participating in the Revolutionary War, got land grants, and, she was alone. Husband had died, and so they stayed there, with her. Samuel Brown. Now here's one that, this was a tree branch that I was suspicious of, because this is actually one above the John Brown that we said didn't look quite right. And this is one above it. So, we looked at the John Brown and we said, there's one here, but I expect to see more nodes. But we go to the father, Samuel, and now we see 4 nodes. And not only do we see 4 nodes, we see 26 matches in these 4 nodes. Okay? We see 3 matches in this node, and we see 5 in this node. And this node was completely dark to me. I had no idea about this node or any of the people in it. And so this is all potentially new information for me. And it's, documented, stitched together. And I'm going to just go out on a limb. I believe this is probably going to prove to be correct. Okay? Just based on the looks and the distance, that's going to be, looks to be correct. So, 12 under the John that we suspected. So, the Lorenzo, there's only 1 under him, but we got the 3 nodes there with 3 under there, 3 under there, or 2 under there. So this looks to be correct with, some extra additions here. And this looks to be, pretty good. So since Samuel was John's, and with this looking, the odds of John panning out are going to be pretty strong, I feel. I mean, I think that that's I'm going to call it a breakthrough in the sense that it seems to match together. And while I had, John in my tree as a potential father who I believed, and I won't get into the whole process of how he did it, but I found one census report, and the way I found it was I looked at every single census report that had John Brown until I found the one that it had to be. Trust me, every John Brown in the United States was a long task. It took me about 3 months to pinpoint that this had to be the right one, okay, by eliminating all the rest. And that's how much effort I put into verifying each node in my tree. And it's important we do that. But in doing that, Samuel, there was a Samuel Brown on the same page of the census report, and in the prior to the 1850s, 1840s and stuff, I was able to match the number of kids in the household to the number of people at the certain age brackets, which gave me strong belief that the father was probably Samuel. But I had no conclusive evidence. I still have no conclusive evidence. But now with ThruLines and with that match, I come up here and I see these matches in these different nodes all coming up here. That's pretty indicative that this information is going to pan out. And so I say that is a huge win for ThruLines, because, while, the step parents, the adoptive, family, that's obviously an error. These were right. These were right. This is right. Again, adoptive parents that were in error. This looks to be right because, that was below the Samuel, which looks to be correct. So, we're looking pretty good in here for a lot of this. Again, this potential, in my case, these potentials are on this family line that is for the adoptive family. And I really think that they should fix that. Now, here's the Wilson Taylor. This was the one we talked about. His wife was Catherine, the mother was Catherine Marks, Mary Pickens. And so again, Wilson Taylor, David Dillon, there's 8 matches that I've got under Sarah. Come back up, this is, a descendant of daughter Lucinda. James Henry, I know this is right. I know James Henry had a daughter, Margaret. And so I believe these also to be right. And I believe this to be right. So again, I call this a huge win for ThruLines and accuracy, stitching those trees together that I didn't know and I didn't have before, this tool come out. They did not show up on family tree circles. So this is actually, looking really, really good. So, let's go to Abraham Fuller. So we're pulling out here. Again, we've got 3 DNA matches here, and we've got 10 matches over in here. And this looks like it it's probably going to pan out too. We put some research specifically into these areas. We're going to do it. Now there's only 2 under here, but when we look at this, this is looking to be, like it's going to pan out. I'm pretty confident in that one. A lot of quote breakthroughs there, a lot of confirmations there, but we're going to have focused effort. And that really, to me, is the greatest thing about this, is ThruLines is going to give focused effort to the areas that need to be researched, rather than, as well, I said before, I literally spent 3 months looking at every John Brown that was born within a 10-year variance, which is 20 years, in the United States, in every state in the Union, until I eliminated the possibility of it being any other John Brown than that one. I mean, it was crazy, and it was hard to eliminate. I got down to 4, and I had to find descendants in each one of those lines and connect trees down in order to prove that, okay, here's a tree and it's not related. Here's a tree and it's not related, until there was only 1 tree left and it was related, and I was able to prove it was related. It was very frustrating, very long, and now ThruLines is doing that for me. It tells me, look here, Larry, look right here. There's stuff to be found right here, right now. So we look at Burn 20, Eberhard 20. Okay, we've got only 2 nodes there, and it comes here. Okay, this is what I expect. But we looked at Caroline 20. We've already verified this line. That one looks a little suspect. I'd hope to see more. There's a sister, which I've documented, and they go to the sister. Okay, that's potentially correct. I don't see anything there, and I don't have any further confirmation there. So I put this one in the suspect category. There's not nearly enough there to make me excited. But again, we're talking about a 5th great-grandfather. Most people don't get that far in their research. So I wouldn't find it too unusual not to do it. In fact, it was pretty anomalous that we had that many, there with her. So we looked at William Lewis, Stockmeyer. Who else could we potentially look at? We just pull up that right here. A lot of these potentials are from that, line that just isn't right. Let's look at this Thomas Taylor. Okay. This is actually going to be a really good one, I think. No. Well, I'm proud of you, ThruLines, because I know online there is a propagated heir for the spouse of John Taylor. I do believe John Taylor is the father of Wilson Taylor. But every single tree that's on Ancestry.com has his wife erroneously. Every single one. And sorry if you're related and you think you have the right person. I'm just going to say, no, I do not believe she was 78 years old when she had Wilson F. Taylor. Okay? You can say you think she does, and I'm going to look at you and say she did not get pregnant at 77 and have Wilson at 78. Your tree is wrong. Okay? And this tree is propagated so many places. If I do a research on it, it's going to show you this heired wife. If you want to check it, look up this John Taylor, 1782, 1872. You can see the wife that people, Peggy Smith, I think is Peggy something. I think it's Peggy Smith as the wife of John Taylor. No, it's not. Okay? So, but the good thing is, ThruLines isn't looking at the spouses. It's not saying, hey, these are the 2 parents. And I think that is really, really smart. Because as we showed in the earlier one with John McFarland, he had 4 kids, 1 by a previous marriage. And then his wife, it shows she had 3 kids, which is right, because it only identified to that one person. And so I think ThruLines really took a smart avenue there, because that eliminates a whole lot of information. And, for people that have questions about this thing propagating errors, looky there. That did not propagate the known error. There's 13, 20 trees. I don't know how many there are now. People just copying and pasting that incorrect information. And I'm going to tell you, every single tree on Ancestry for John Taylor has the incorrect spouse. There is not one that has the correct one unless you believe the spouse had John when she was 78 years old. And if you think that, get with me. We'll talk offline and I'll explain to you why that can't possibly be. It's not right. All right. So, we go on here and let's look here at John Clayton. Now, John Clayton, potential ancestor. Is this going to be another one on that adoptive line? No, actually it's not. But we come here. Here's, person 5 generations down. Sarah Clayton, his daughter. Okay, we got a couple of nodes here. We got 2 nodes there. All right, that's not too bad. We got a couple of nodes on this one. Not too bad. And then we get down to our known node that's right. So that tells me that this John Clayton, potential ancestor that I don't have in my tree, it tells me that this could be the father of the Sarah Clayton that I do have in my tree. I have Sarah or Sally because I found documents that say both ways, so I don't know which one it was, so I put Sarah or Sally. But it actually matched it up with John Clayton. Not from this person's tree. Okay, this person went all the way to here. But their tree evidently has Sarah and Evan. So ThruLines made another breakthrough there. And I feel pretty confident that that one's probably right. So that's actually really good. And I'm like I said, there's a lot of really good potential things in here that I'm excited about seeing. Let's see if we can find another one here. We're up in this area. Here's a Thomas Taylor. Okay, Thomas Taylor as a potential father for the John Taylor, which we were talking about before. I know that the John Taylor has the heir and the wife, but again, kudos to ThruLines for not propagating that heir by putting the wife here and everybody wanting to copy and paste. And then, for those that have the wife, you notice the wife wasn't there for me to see. There wasn't a Peggy Smith next to him. At least I didn't see it. If it did, I'll show you how there's an error. There's Thomas Taylor. And so, Thomas Taylor, there's no Peggy Smith there. So it did not propagate the known heir. Kudos to Ancestry and ThruLines for whatever. Their algorithm said 78 years old. They don't buy it either. So thank you for that. David Van Hook. Is this potential? Well, okay, we got 3 connections under this node and 4 connections under that node that have gone back to a 5th great-grandfather. That's pretty good. None at William and none at Minerva. Lots here. But again, we go up here to find 3 over here and 4 on this side. That's actually pretty good. I think that, what do I have in my tree? I think I have to go over here. So my tree's here. I've got 4 matches that go under me. I think I'm going to find 3 more matches here. I think that if I look around, I'm going to find Robert and William were brothers and be able to take that node down. So this is one that I definitely want to investigate some more. So, we come on down here, how it goes out, it looks like to the 5th great-grandfather. Again, like we talked in the centimorgans video, once you get to a certain point, Ancestry doesn't show you a match. It only goes to 6 centimorgans. So people that are matching you on these, they're out there at the very borderline of error, okay? And so, there's probably a lot that you're going to want to research before that. Let's look at this George Wells. That's as far away as it gets. George Wells, Elizabeth Carter. And notice there's no DNA matches in here. This is purely off of trees. And what do we have here? That's my adoptive grandmother, my mom's adoptive mother. And so there are no DNA matches. But I would go out and say that, my grandmother that I knew was raised as my grandmother, I know her as my grandmother, even though, it was adopted there. I bet that this is the family tree for her. So for her portion of my tree, I will probably go up there and update that because I like to keep it, right. These I know are on the adoptive line. Bon is, I just know that because I remember my grandmother's, lineage a little bit. And now here we got some DNA matches under Fuller. Under Abraham, we got 2 over here. Okay, we got some matches there. 6 under here. We go to the, Van Hooks. Okay, we had the male Van Hook we pulled up. This is under the female. Mother was, Caroline Fuller. So, this has potential to add some value to my tree. So all in all, I would say that, it stands true about 40% of the time, you're going to find some very valuable potential breakthrough information. And again, nothing's solid until you prove it, but it's going to tell you, look here, and it's going to be very easy to prove or disprove in probably a pretty short order because you're looking for something specific. So if you're looking for something, that specific, you're going to be able to tell one way or the other pretty quickly. And then it's got what I'd call the arrow ones, and that's where you have the adoptive families. That was an adoptive family. Well, actually, that wasn't even an adoptive family. My father's wife, it suggests to me, as my mother, even though my mother is on my Ancestry DNA match list right here. This is my mother, 3471 centimorgans. There's no questions about it. And they give me another potential mother. I'm sorry. Yes, right, no, yes, yes, no. No, I understand it. It's an adopted thing. Yes, 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 yes. Adoptive, yes, 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 yes. Yes, yes. So adoptive, yes, yes, yes. Let's look at this one. I don't even know who that one is. It says that it's got something above that, but with no name. So we'll call that one a no, because there's nothing of value to be had there. Yes, 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 yes. I don't think I pulled this one up for you, but we'll pull it up. So, this one's got a little bit of value there. And then, we've already proven this one. So that one's got a little bit of value there. I think that one's going to pan out. So we'll call that one a maybe. Couple more. There's the adoptives. Oh, we already went over those. Yes. I don't know. Let's look at this one. It says Martha Patsy Matterson is James's mother, but there's no other, if I come up here, there's nothing to prove that. And then when I come to him, there's nothing, really for him. He's got the daughter here and there, so maybe, probably, but I don't know. It does match there. Now, under the James Larkin, these, yes, that's right, that's accurate. So I'd call that one a mostly or probably. There's some stuff to look at. So all in all, again, I think you can say 40% of it's right, or going to probably pan out to be right. I mean, I can't declare it right until I check it, but 40% is going to probably pan out to be right. 40% I'm pretty sure is wrong. 20%, it could, it may not, don't really know. Some of it may, half of it may. So, I think we got 40 yes, 40 no, and 20% in the middle that could go either way on a case-by-case basis, and even those may be 50-50. Well, that's the evaluation I have of ThruLines. Looking through my data, I'd be interested to know, when you look through yours, what you saw. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down below. And if you don't mind, if you like the video, click the thumbs up. If you don't like the video, click the thumbs down. Let me know why down below, and I'll see if I can improve upon them and not do the same thing next time. And if you don't mind, subscribe to the channel. That always helps. Only a few subscribers now, but if enough subscribe, I know some people that are, think the voice is good, the content's good, and may actually give me a little bit of coin for doing this. So I'd appreciate that. It'd help pay for the computer and the hard disk drives where I store a lot of my DNA stuff. And who knows, it'd be nice to get a little money for doing the family tree research. Anyway, thanks a lot for listening, and we'll talk to you later.